So now we're halfway into this 10 tips for intentional practice series. And I don't know if you've been following along, but I hope you have. This is tip number 5. And of course, each of these tips, the number of the tip has something to do with the tip itself. So as you might guess, tip number 5, I'm going to talk about pentatonic scales. Now, hold on. I know you might say, well, I know everything I need to know about pentatonic scales, so I'm just going to skip this one. That's the whole point of what I want to talk about here, is that a lot of us do think we know everything there is to know about pentatonics, and consequently we wind up playing a lot of the same licks. People of different levels and interests. Even if you're at all interested in electric blues and the pentatonic boxes, of which there are 5, you probably play some stuff that somebody else might play, probably play some stuff that I play, and I'd love for you to find some new stuff, some fresh stuff that still feels of the blues vernacular, but not so cliched. Because what happens every style of music has some cliches. So sometimes when we play a little familiar, that lets you know that I know that you know that I know that we're talking about the blues. Okay. But you want to get beyond that so that people don't tune out, So to give them something fresh, you have to give yourself something fresh. And I'm going to show you 2.5 approaches to how I've worked on that. So one is to take a familiar lick or a simple lick, just maybe 4 or 5 notes, and move it out of the box where it normally lives, assuming the 5 pentatonic boxes. Let me just stop for a second and show you what I'm talking about with these boxes. So this is, if we're in A minor, this would be your kind of go-to number 1 box with the A here. Right? But of course there's a form behind that, and that's down here. Right? So that's 2 of the 5. There's one up here that starts on C. There's one that starts on D. And then there's one that starts on E, which we could also get at from open down here. So anyway, those are the 5 boxes. So what I was starting to say is you could take a little phrase and move it out of the box where it feels kind of native to that box and put it in some different places and just see where that leads you. So here's a simple little phrase. So if we're thinking in A, it starts on the 5th, 4 bends quickly up to 5, and then comes back down, and then the minor 3rd, which maybe we'll give it just the slightest little, tiniest little bend, and then land on the root. So I'm thinking of this as 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So that phrase, if we move that, let's move it back first, because that's how I showed you those 5 boxes. So let's see. That feels so different. I don't know if it sounds different to you, but in hand, that feels like a totally different thing. Because you're bending now with your index. And it'll take some practice to get that to really be in tune. We're so used to bending with this ring finger, but not so much with the index. So let's move it now up. So again, that's a bend with the index. But it's starting to sound a little bit rounder and darker because we're moving to heavier strings and we're moving farther this way. So here's the next one. Okay, and then there's one up here. Again, kind of rounder, warmer, woollier. Did I get all of them? I guess there's one here. That sounds so different from this. Or this. Right? So start by just moving it somewhere and then see where you might want to go after you play that. So let's play here. So all that stuff is right out of the bluesy feeling, but I haven't played those things before. And I got to the whole phrase there by starting in this almost like if you're a bowler, you know, starting your step on the wrong foot. I don't recommend that if you're trying to bowl, but on the guitar, sometimes goofy footing yourself like that can lead you to some surprising place. And that's what this tip is about, is you want to surprise yourself and go somewhere fresh. So that's one way that I might do it, is just to play a phrase in some different positions. A variation on that would be to play the phrase in a different octave. Now, I couldn't get to that A note at the end of that phrase because of the position I'm in here, so I jumped octaves, and that's a cool variation too. Cool. Even though, you know, I could go down in those positions, I jumped up because I got inspired by the time when I couldn't. So that's one kind of idea. Another thing that I like to do is to kind of jumble two positions together. So I might take this box and this box and let myself kind of move freely between them. That feels almost more vocal-like to me. So I'm moving more freely from position to position, mostly trying to keep it to 3 notes per string. Probably breaking that rule a little bit, but that's the big idea. Let's just see what happens and really do think of it as a more vocal thing and less of a typical guitar thing. You can always go back to this. Like all the stuff that you've been playing for years is still going to be there, I promise. You don't have to hold it with a super tight grip. It'll still be there. Go into the woods and get a little bit lost. And when you need some of that comfort, I promise you it'll still be there when you come back. So that's tip number 5, getting fresh with the pentatonics. Hey, thanks for tuning in to this week's tip. It's part of a series. I don't know if you knew that, but I'm doing this New Year's series called 10 Tips for Intentional Practice. It's kind of like a New Year's resolution series specifically for guitar players. I've come up with 10 things that I think are important for just about any kind of player, whatever your level, whatever your interest is. I think you'll find something here that will help you set a good intention for growth on the guitar in this year. If you haven't already subscribed to Guitar Tips, that's this channel, right now would be a perfect time to subscribe. And if you liked this video, then please give it a thumbs up, like, and make sure to tune in next week for another tip in the series.